Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it unacceptable.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. A very hot week here in St. Louis and a lot of hot topics that'll be discussed by our crew, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Weiss from the Big 550 KTRS. From the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com, one of our founders, Bill McClellan, who's back after a week off, after he served his suspended sentence. And we go to Mr. Ray Hartman, another founder who's now heard on the Big 550 KTRS, and you can read his columns in the Riverfront Times, along with Alvin Reed from the St. Louis American, STLmag.com, 590 and 97.1 FM News Talk. We're going to start with you, Ray, because in the Riverfront Times, which is our weekly alternative newspaper. Everybody knows that. You founded that, and you wrote a column recently about the Missouri Bluffs. It's a Whitaker development where the plan is to put up some residential housing on some bluffs in St. Charles overlooking the Katy Trail. The Planning and Zoning Committee of St. Charles County gave it thumbs down. Do you think it's going to pass in the end?
I don't know. I don't know my St. Charles County politics well enough. Mike Elam, who I talked to as a councilman, was struggling to figure out where he's going to get a third vote. There's 7 members on the council. The vote, because the vote was negative, they have to have a supermajority. So they have to have 5 of the 7 vote yes. It's probably next week. Steve Ellman seems to be for it. I think it's a very bad idea for the environment. I think it's a very bad idea that my alma mater, Mizzou, is selling land that it was given to a developer for like little more than the cost of a football coach. I just think it's a sad deal, and I wish Missouri would change his mind. I hope the folks in St. Charles County listen, because I think the residents of St. Charles County and the folks at Planning and Zoning, as I said in my column, this isn't Greenpeace. This is a group of people that is pretty conservative. I wish they'd listen to them.
And you had, you came out against this a long time ago, and lesson learned here, I think, for all municipalities. Why does it have to come down to like the buzzsaws are fired up before people honestly start raising heck? Because this has been going on a long time. And I don't want to build the houses there. Being a devil's advocate, though, I'm kind of thinking like, if you're Whitaker or St. Charles, those that support it, so like, this is pretty much a done deal. And now, all of a sudden, it's an undone deal.
Alan, the environmentalists have been fighting this for a long time.
But when the environmentalists fight money wins. Yeah. And I think that they're going to get their supermajority in the council, and I think there will be homes built on the bluffs.
Well, I think there's a lot of money behind the environmentalists, and I don't think they're all from St. Charles. There are, 3 or 4 dozen people who will show up at these meetings, and they're angry, but according to Whitaker, they now have more than 250 people who've signed up to be on the waiting list for what's going to be 150 homes. And, your alma mater did get 8,000 acres back in 1948. Right. It already donated or sold 7,200 to the Department of Conservation. We're only talking about 150 acres here.
First of all, it's the wrong 150 acres. And by the way, people like Dan and Connie Burkhart, who are very well-to-do and have taken over from Ted Jones as the guardian of the Katy Trail, to their credit. There's people like the Bushes. Trudy Bush spoke up about it. And this impacts the Bush Conservation Area, the Katy Trail.
Can I say this?
I wish him well, Ray, but
I'm just saying that people of means.
If I could just jump in.
You're right.
I would actually jump out on a limb and say that I think that the environmentalists are going to win, and I think they should. I think people are really hot about this for some reason, and have been for a long time, and I don't know if it has something to do with all of the development out there in floodplains, and we continue to encroach upon St. Charles County. People are moving out there. So I think the environmentalists will win.
Let's remember, originally 8,000 acres, 7,200 went to the Department of Conservation. They're not touched. Of the remaining 700, right, or 800, 700 went to the research park that includes the Nike factory with 600 jobs. It includes Novus. It includes engineering firms. We're only talking about 150. The homes cannot be seen by the Katy Trail, and there's already a golf course there with the homes are going to be around. So I don't know what the environmentalists are talking about.
The planning
What's the
is,
big change?
Without us getting into the whole detail, the Planning and Zoning
although
Commission.
that's the key.
Well, no, but there are some very serious.
Details.
Well, the details. For example, just to, if you want one boring example, there is a 30% grade requirement in St. Charles County. Guess what? Now it's been changed to 50% to accommodate this project.
Wow.
And it affects all projects now in St. Charles County. They've changed their grade standard,
Okay.
which I don't understand much
Can I
about.
address that?
For everybody.
Have you ever gone to the Amalfi Coast? Have you gone to Monte Carlo? Or have you gone to places like Colorado or Malibu? That's how they build. Now we
just
might
saying
have
that
a
St. Charles
disagreement.
changed its
It might
rules
be a
for this
matter of
project.
taste. Some people like homes on bluffs. Some people do not. And I think the environmentalists don't want one there. But I think it looks cool to have homes on a hillside.
Well, I mean, I
Well,
do too.
unless
but
they
that's- but-
start to fall in. I'm sorry.
All right, on our street, we have a street called Creekside Manor. This was one patch, which just had always been the woods forever, probably going back to the Plesiozoic era, whatever. Okay, they built Creekside, which is now, I guess, 6 homes. Tore out everything. All right, they're very nice homes, many mansions, good to go. I wish it was still pristine. Okay, and I just wish it was still pristine. I can't give you a good argument like why it should not have been purchased and why built houses where the deer and the antelope play. Okay, that's why you shouldn't do it. Like Ray said, it's the wrong 150 acres.
Check
Well, what
some
about
of,
your
check
home?
Some, check some.
I'm sure there are
My home was
antelope.
built like in 1938.
Exactly. I'm
It
sure
was
there was
on the
someone
right
who
one.
said at that time.
All right, good point.
Check some of
You're
those.
right.
Check some of those developments along the Pacific Coast Highway through Central and Northern
Oh.
California. A lot of them are falling into the ocean, and they wish that they hadn't. Obviously, the Katy Trail isn't going to fall into the Pacific Ocean, but still.
Okay.
Do you know one of the sidelights is that Sarah Club told me, I didn't get it in the column, there are people that are descendants of the original owners who had their land confiscated by eminent domain by the feds back in the 40s, still hold their like annual protest over that. Now, I don't know where they got the land. I mean,
Now, this
I-
all-
and my
that's the whole
understanding is-
story of the Katy Trail.
somebody sent me a rumor that there's
Good
actually
point.
some Native American art.
Well, there's people
artifacts
say
and
there's
stuff.
radioactive waste.
And then there's the question of
Okay.
the university
Okay.
could be using its resources to look at that.
All right, Bill McClellan, I want to ask you about another topic, and that would be Wesley Bell, who's the county prosecutor, who's in the news this week because Channel 5 discovered that he now has 11 unpaid parking tickets from this year. He's accumulating these, and I think everybody thinks he should pay his tickets, but except him and his chief of staff. He's going to take these to court on August the 8th in front of Judge Dooley, and here's, I guess, the deal. He has parked on streets. Clayton has given him tickets. He says he needs to be able to get to places in a hurry. I think a lot of us can claim that. Why do you think he's not paying his tickets?
You know, I don't know. This is the first time that Wesley Bell has seemed completely tone deaf. And his aide, Sam Alton, saying it's too tedious for these powerful people to have to walk through the building to the parking lot. They'd like to be able to just walk outside and park illegally if they want to. I mean, if I were advising Wesley Bell, I'd say, just make a statement that, you know, I didn't realize we were doing this, and from now on, we're not going to park illegally, and if any of us does, we'll pay our tickets, because we're just citizens like everybody else. This idea that he was elected to be above the law is just the worst possible look for a county prosecutor.
Or either pay the tickets and say, like, I want to address it in some way, shape, or form where myself and certain employees of the county can park anywhere we want to, I guess.
I mean, that makes
but
no
at least,
sense.
But at least, you know, pay your tickets first of all.
And Bob McCullough's on record as saying that when he got tickets for this, he paid them.
And I think that's part of the problem. I think Wesley Bell defeated an institution who was embedded, and a lot of people were surprised that he beat him. I think that going to Bob McCullough and saying, you know, yes, I had 18 tickets and I paid them all and I paid them out of my own pocket, that's probably one of the reasons why Wesley Bell is digging his heels in.
I don't know.
Well,
and how many
sir,
people,
mistake.
and not that this ever really happens in real life, but how many people get tickets fixed? I mean, like, dude, you go there, hey man, tear these up.
But the whole point is we elected you to enforce the law, so abide by the law. Period.
Right, but I mean, police officers who are not, and I'm not saying they're like way out of line, but police officers driving 70 in a 55, a fellow police officer will tell them like, hey dude, slow down.
Right.
Right.
But this is just the first time that Wesley Bell has not looked pretty shrewd.
Yeah, I agree with Bill, and of course I'm a big fan still of Wesley Bell, and I keep hoping maybe he's doing this to. I mean, at least he didn't get him fixed, which would have been a worse story. Maybe he wants to make some kind of statement about parking tickets. I agree with Bill about the optics. I don't understand it, but maybe we'll see what plays out. He's going to court. I mean, at least it's all in public, I guess.
Hey, Ray, let me ask
But
you.
it took the I-team.
Yes, thank you.
There's that.
Yeah, good
That's
for
not
the
good.
Jacob Long. Is that his name?
I don't think
Okay.
it's a good story.
What do you think about Michael Bradley being named the special prosecutor by, I think Judge Rex Burleson named him to look into charges, Ray, that the Greitens defense team, which included people like former U.S. attorneys Jim Martin and Ed Dowd and former Judge Jack Garvey and Scott Rosenblum, that they had actually threatened the circuit attorney. Those are her charges. The police department's looked into it for a while, but not to the circuit attorney's satisfaction. So now she's happy that a special prosecutor is going to look into that.
I want our late, great Martin Dugan just to look down and say, let's move on to something else, not our show, but the whole thing. To me, let's start with one little fact. The charges against Eric Greitens, who was not a wonderful guy, were dropped. Okay, it was dropped. Okay, we have spent the city that can't keep its street safe and can't fix its potholes. Has spent, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, millions with this basic cat fight between lawyers. And I don't want to, I'm on neither side. In other words, I don't want to see any more prosecution and criminalization of the circuit attorney for bad judgment. And I don't want to see any more attacks on the lawyers. I think the whole thing needs to go away.
Well, Ray, don't the citizens deserve some explanation of why Kim Gardner, for a simple case, I mean, the three people involved were the governor, the hairdresser, and maybe the hairdresser's husband, why we had to have a special investigator brought in from Michigan, and why he apparently lied under oath. And
Why she didn't correct it?
Yeah, and then we needed a special prosecutor Gardner had to bring in from Harvard when her office is filled with prosecutors. You want to talk about spending money? Don't public deserve answers?
Two of her own attorneys, right. two of her own people have said that there wasn't any threat. I mean, that's what they told the police. There was no threat. So how do you square that?
I squared it. As I said, I think it was a case that was dropped. It had nothing to do with Eric Greitens resigning from governor. That was a party. That was the Republican Party wanted him out, and I don't blame them. They obviously are pleased with the result. It's interesting. One of the ironies is one of the few times the parties came together, the Democrats and Republicans are both happy that Greitens gone, and the case was dropped. It's not worth the money to keep fighting about this. It's over.
I agree with you.
I don't want to see. I don't want to see Scott
That's
Rosen.
something that I want to get
I don't
to
want
the
to see
bottom of.
Ed Dowd and Scott Rosenblum prosecuted. Just drop the
I
whole
don't
thing.
either. That whole thing with the lawyers, that's silly.
Yes.
I mean,
Just drop it all.
she's charged, that's silly, okay? But I have to stand with, and I don't think another grand jury should be called either.
Well.
However, if I had been charged with a crime and I'm like in jury selection and the case against me suddenly just gets thrown out, middle of the afternoon, bam, we're not going to trial, you can leave today, Mr. Reed. And then I find out there was some shenanigans going on as far as like soliciting some perjury and carrying on, I'm suing. I want that pursued to the furthest length of the law.
But
I don't care if the case was dropped.
Greitens agreed not to sue.
Well, that's on him.
Yeah, right.
It's dropped. Okay.
Well,
Not
I will
only
say
that,
this.
but one other little.
She's got to explain some things. And her attorney this week in the Post-Dispatch said the gag order's off, so now I'm going to talk. But he didn't address things like when Mr. Tisby went to lunch and he made a phone call to Ms. Gardner, 36 minutes long, and then he went back after lunch and under oath with her at his side, he said, I didn't talk to her during lunch, and she didn't correct him. And by law, she has to
If
correct
that's your
that
circuit
statement
attorney,
legally.
you have a problem, Ray.
Then
that's
vote
a
her
problem.
out next year
Well,
if you don't like her.
That's prosecutorial
This is-
misconduct, right? I mean,
For Christ,
you
know
got to
what?
take it seriously.
I will stick to my guns.
All right.
I think
Well,
we need to move on to things that matter and stop wasting
Okay, but
taxpayers'
if
money.
this were,
doesn't
if this
matter
were
to-
a Republican, Ray, I have to
Oh,
think
boy.
that you would think this does matter.
He'd be
No.
firing up the grill. Yeah.
I
First
would
of all,
think
when's
so.
the last
Firing up the
Republican
grill.
that was this? No, I don't,
Okay,
wouldn't think
let's
that.
move on from this
if
topic.
it were me, if I
Yeah.
was the guy charged,
And by the way,
a
you
would be
huge problem.
And I disagree with you about that. I
Wendy
don't
Weiss, let me
think
ask
I
you
would.
this. MetroLink announced it's going to refinance some of its funds, and it'll have $20 million for security, including fences that'll better corral the passengers so they can keep an eye on them, as well as some cameras. $20 million. This is at a time when MetroLink ridership is way down. Is it going to do the trick?
But because, if I'm not mistaken, because of the language in the bond issue, it can't be used. This money that we will save and make, it cannot be used on employees. Correct? It has to be used.
You may be right on that.
On special projects, and as you said, the fencing and that kind of thing. We're already into MetroLink. We're dug in deep. We cannot disband, start pulling the tracks up and do what? You know, I mean, I think this is money well spent. I think it's terrific that they're refinancing. It's still kind of funny when you think of refis on the house, the MetroLink. But yes, absolutely. You never know.
And Charlie, you got Talby Roach is relatively new to the job. Give him a chance. I mean, and
He's
here we
thinking-
are. We all complain constantly, and a lot
Right.
of folks are scared. The ridership's down because people are scared. And here's MetroLink. They did the study, which I was the only one defending doing the study. But the fact is, they are doing the things that was said to be done, and one of them was beef up both the reality and the perception of security was priority number one. Good for them that they're doing it.
Why don't we charge people to get on the MetroLink?
Well, that's one of the things
that's
they
One of the things
couldn't
he's-
some of that $20 million go to that?
You mean have turnstiles?
Yeah. Well, you have to have a
Now,
ticket
that
to
is
get
not-
on, and I still think that reduces the crime almost immediately. Would there be crime if there were no security and all that?
Of course
Certainly.
there will be.
But the reason you don't have this rampant just craziness in other cities is because you got to pay to get on in the first place.
Well, I think having security guards or policemen on the trains would be a huge help, and I'm like you guys. I support spending a lot of money.
And you go
on
to
that.
Europe, there's a guy, a gun, or a
Alvin?
woman and a gun and a dog
That's-
on like every train.
Every platform.
Every platform.
But the
so,
fact-
Yes,
Right.
but there's also, in those cities that you see a dog and a police officer, whoever else on every train, every platform, there are a ton of riders. And they're generally in cities where using the car is very expensive and really inconvenient, because as soon as you get into some of these cities in traffic, you can't move. But that's not the case in St. Louis.
But Charlie,
we
you're-
live in a city where you can go from the burbs to downtown so easily, even during rush hour.
A lot of people don't have cars, and you're missing part of that chicken egg equation, aren't you? I mean, if we bolster, if we lock down, tighter security, you might just see ridership go up as quickly as it plummeted.
I think we might be a car town. I really do. I think we might
We
be a town
clearly
that
are a car
prefers
town.
the car.
Well, what should we do?
I think- I
Should we
think- I
take
think
our
the
wheelbarrow
tru-
out to the tracks and
Well,
just
do you
start
throw-
digging it up and putting
Do you throw good money after bad? I mean, we're going to have
No.
this situation with the loop trolley.
Guess who I
because
heard-
the loop trolley
I-
can't catch flies right now.
Guess who I heard?
God love people
Guess who
behind
I
it.
heard give a speech that made just that argument? Your former employer, Kit Bond, said it in 1996. So that's
Which is
tired.
that?
Oh, we're just a car town. People just drive. We like to drive. We don't need
We
no
are.
Trans.
Well, that doesn't
that's
make it right.
archaic and
I mean,
old and
Charlie,
Let me
ridiculous
tell you
thinking.
something, Elvin Reed. People are moving to places like Wentzville and St. Charles where there is no MetroLink.
And it didn't have
the
nothing to-
population
that-
is moving away
You're always
from
talking about
MetroLink.
the millennials.
Young
It's funny.
people have shown us in the elections that they want mass transit. I mean, old people like me, I'd prefer to drive, but young people like for
Yeah.
the environmental reasons.
Absolutely,
and
and
other
you're always
reasons.
talking
They
about
like
millennials.
millennials.
That's what they said 10 years
It's
ago.
funny you mentioned St.
The
Charles.
stories are the studies now show that millennials are moving to the burbs and they're getting cars just like their parents.
It's funny you mentioned St. Charles because the
One second.
single biggest boondoggle, the single biggest waste in
Oh,
my
and
lifetime
you're gonna lecture
here
St.
was
Charles
the
again.
Page Avenue
Yeah.
extension. Try driving on it. We spent $1 billion with a B in transportation dollars
You
from
could
all
shoot
sources
cannons
that
off on
we
the Page
could have
Avenue
done. That was absolutely
Ray.
just because of the inconvenience of sprawl.
That was a
It
jobs
the
bill
worst
under Buzz
project.
Westphal,
It's,
wasn't
it?
it's
Right.
a second reference to Martin Dugan. He and I were one of the only issues we agreed on was against that Page Avenue extension.
You keep lecturing St. Charles. Meanwhile,
lecturing
they
St.
grow
Charles.
they grow again in population
I'm
and
not lecturing
jobs.
St.
They're
Charles.
off the charts. They have the
I'm
highest
saying we shouldn't
educational attainment per
accommodate
household.
sprawl. I did not lecturing St.
Right, it
Charles.
was
It's a
St.
great
Louis
community.
County that did that.
Well, okay.
Nothing wrong with St.
How
Charles.
about the bridge across the Mississippi? I mean, how many bridges do we need here now to a downtown that's losing jobs?
Oh,
I
we-
mean,
we
we
gonna-
don't have the jobs we used to.
On January 1st, we're going to need another one.
That's right. That's right.
That's
That's
okay,
right.
Good
Or
point.
commute.
He's talking about drugs and other vices,
Gambling.
ladies and
And floating Taco Bells.
And you're all
right?
wrong about
Not a good
the
idea.
structure of MetroLink is not the problem. It's
Well, why
the-
aren't people riding it?
Because they're scared.
They're scared.
If you
Well, no,
beef
no, no.
up security, if
the
you make
enfor-
it, if you make people feel safe, Kevin Costner, if you build
Right.
it, they will come.
Okay,
But
so
it's
why
not
don't we?
about turning-
They will come back.
We've
But
got a
I wish
Metro.
they would have built it down Highway 40. I
of
mean,
course.
that
But
would
they
have been a
did.
better
I'd be
thing.
honest.
So
But
just
they
make
didn't,
the
so we
most
have
of it.
to-
Right.
Yeah, we
make the
have to
most of what
make-
we got. And
Absolutely.
it's not
Well,
a problem.
I would
with
love to
structure.
use
Again, I
it,
keep
even
waiting
though
for members
walking-
of this panel to take MetroLink. You're more than welcome to
I
do it
take
any
it to
week.
every
We got to
sport.
stop.
I don't
If
go
you
to any
can-
sport.
if there's
Why
a
don't you
mass-
take one here?
Because
to
it's
work on
very
Thursdays?
inconvenient
Wait,
to the station.
Well, because
Very
I'm
inconvenient.
three-fourths
It's not.
of
It's
the-
on great. We've granted
Wait,
a location.
I'm 3/4 of the way to the station before I get to the nearest metro stop.
You get an
to me.
exemption.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
For
okay.
me to
Now,
get to Channel 9 from Chesterfield, where friends don't let their friends move, would require a 9 point something on the Richter scale, and walking from the MetroLink station would be far too tedious.
All right.
I like your word.
Thank
too.
you.
Oh, that's good. Albin, I want to ask you about William Lacey Clay, our congressman from the area, who recently attacked AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the congresswoman from New York City, who said that Nancy Pelosi was singling her out and other members of the squad, the 4 women of color who are congresswomen and liberal, left of center, because they are racist, because they are of color. She claimed, to make myself clear because I wasn't, that Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, was picking on them because they are of color. And Lacey Clay defended Pelosi, says, why are they pulling the race card? He criticized AOC. Why did he jump in? Why didn't he leave well enough alone?
Well, for one, when Democrats took back the House, I was one of those that said, like, Nancy Pelosi's got to go. That is the last thing that the Democratic Party needs. And he stood steadfast with her. Now, a lot of people say it's because of the money she generates, and that's probably the top thing. But he has always been in her corner. But more importantly, Lacey is I think, from my understanding, looking ahead to the 2020, maybe the 2022 election. He's seeing where the opposition in his own party is coming from, and how some, unknown candidates with very little money have won seats in Congress. He doesn't want to lose his seat. So he's very active. And we were been talked about this, and like, who's this Lacey Clay? Right. Well, he's very active, and we were talking about here as of late some of the things he's been involved. This has been going on for a while. One of the candidates I thought who might jump in there, it's my understanding that Tashara is not going to run. It's also my understanding that they've come to a peace, and that if she should decide to run again for mayor, that I think Lacey would be with her. He's just kind of like, see how the wind is blowing is not the right term. It's more of a case.
He's reading the tea leaves.
I'm not preparing to run against any specific candidate. I'm preparing to run against this flow of where things are going right now.
Well, how about also, Alvin, that it was just a couple of months ago that we were reading reports that Congressman Clay was inviting Ocasio here to St. Louis to campaign for him because she had campaigned for his opponent,
right,
Ms. Bush, the last time, and he wasn't sure if she was going to accept his invitation or not, and all of a sudden he's against her, and one would think that she probably has not accepted his invitation.
Well,
and
I
will be
disagree
against
with
it.
I disagree with that. First of all, Lacey Clay, I have not always supported him on a lot of things, but I will say he is newly energized. It may have something to do with Trump, frankly. I mean, I don't think you should just assume it's all politics. A lot of people feel very concerned about the existential danger posed by this president and across party lines. And he has, I was one of the people cynical about Pelosi. I think she has really been amazing in what she's been able to do. Lacey Clay has allied with her. Don't forget, Lacey Clay was one of the first people to sign on to the Green New Deal with Ocasio-Cortez, which was a big deal, and I think will make it very unlikely.
Well, why do you think he's criticizing Cortez now?
Well, I think
That's
because on this particular thing, this particular
the
issue
existential threat
defined
is to Nancy Pelosi, and she,
okay.
she's gathering her friends and circling the wagons.
I think a lot of Democrats, and I happen to agree with Lacey Clay on this, that if the Democrats are that Nancy Pelosi is trying to protect the people who
Nancy
won
Pelosi.
the districts in 2018 that gave Democrats control that Trump had won in 2016. And Lacey Clay, I think smartly, is on her side in this particular dispute. And the interesting thing is...
But he didn't have to get in. That's my whole point.
Well, but no,
he didn't have to take a side.
Well, but he did, and I think he did it because he believed in it.
And I think he believes
and
that's
he
what's
did the
good
right
politics
thing.
for him.
And by
And
the way,
protecting his
Donald Trump
do.
just let them off the hook with his strategy of trying to make the entire Democratic Party look like these four folks. I think it's going to backfire.
But Al Green, of Texas, he introduced articles of impeachment for the fourth time, and there are a lot of people, I think, within a lot of
Lacey did too.
Yeah, a lot of people within the Democratic Party that are like, move on this.
Okay,
I think
we
when-
got to move on it. Okay, thank you so much for your comments. Let's find out what folks had to say about last week's program. We heard from Tom McCurk of South St. Louis City, who wrote, "To really pour salt on our wound, the LA Rams are building a new football stadium with private money, not taxpayer money." You can write us care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Don't forget those emails, letters@ketc.org. And we love those tweets, hashtag DonnybrookSTL. We invite you to listen to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. Thank you so much for joining us, but don't go away because Alvin Reed and Wendy Weiss are going to be taking your phone calls in just a few moments on your turn. So this is the time when you can call in right now. Everybody else, we'll see you next week at this time. Stay cool. Go Cardinals.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
One thing you're not supposed to do is talk about how really hot outside it is when it's really hot outside. So I'm not going to do that. See what I did there?
Coolest guy in St. Louis.
Wendy Weiss and Alvin Reed, it's your turn. And we're going to start with Mario in North City. Hi, Mario.
Hey, how's it going? All right. I wanted to talk to you guys about the MetroLink transportation issue.
Okay.
Great job today. Loved it as usual. But, that's a good point you guys made. With lower traffic, I didn't think about that. I go to it with, like, car shows, conventions, downtown, because I don't want to pay the $15-20 to park.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. I didn't know it was shrinking. But another thing, don't forget that the millennials are tech-savvy. So they've been using this Lyft, okay? And Lyft does background checks. And so when you can take a fare with 4 of your friends with paying a fare anywhere between $9 and $15 to go wherever you want to go with the average mileage 20 miles or 15 miles for $9 to $15, you really can't beat it when the Laclede taxi cab is talking about $3 for the first ride, and then every quarter mile you're talking about another $1.25. Put them out of business. So my point is, with Lyft doing the background checks, all that good stuff, I don't know even if they do the security that it would come back full force like it does, because Lyft is just so convenient.
Okay, good call, Mario. I'll tell you what, I took my first Uber ride of my life like a couple of weeks ago and went to the stadium with some friends. And, quite frankly, everything he said was true. Now, we still need to expand mass transit, but that is the truth.
That is the truth, and I'm surprised we didn't bring that up, because Uber and Lyft they have both really changed the landscape in this city and in every other city. We thank you so much for the phone call, Mario. Let's go to Helene in St. Charles. Hi, Helene. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hi. I just wanted to add my 2 cents about the Page extension. I think Ray is totally off base. There's a huge volume of traffic going out to Wentzville every afternoon between 4:30 and 6, and of course in the morning. I'm not as aware of the volume, but no, I think it's a huge help to the traffic coming into St. Charles, and that's my comment.
Okay, I'm just not on it enough. I know that, and I'm not on it at rush hour anytime, but the times I've been on it and it wasn't rush hour, it's
pretty empty.
It's pretty empty.
Yeah, you could, as I said, you could fire a few cannons off and not hurt anybody. But I think that Helene makes a very good point. When it opened, at that time, there just wasn't anybody on it, and that created a great deal of interest and a lot of headlines and a great deal of conversation on talk radio. But things have changed, don't you think? And St. Charles has been booming, so it is a different landscape now, Helene. Thank you for your call.
Thank you. Let's go to Tony on the south side. Hi, Tony.
Hi there. How you guys doing tonight?
Just fine.
Thank you.
I just had a comment about Wesley Bell and the parking situation. If any one of us average citizens would have parked where he parked as many times as he parked and got the tickets he got, we would have had our car either booted or towed away. And if we had the arrogance and attitude that he had about it, we'd been locked up.
Well, I doubt we'd be locked up because we don't lock up people for parking citations. However, I think our car would have been towed. If the same car were in the same place doing the same thing 11 times, sooner or later some action would be taken. Now, they may have known it was his car, but they still had to get him a ticket. So, just pay the tickets and, find some way to park your car where you want to park your car, but in the meantime, pay the tickets.
And just, when you're being interviewed, don't ever say that it's tedious to walk back and forth to a parking garage that everybody has to walk back and forth to. Thank you, Tony. Let's go to Deborah in St. Peters. Hi, Deborah. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, Alvin.
Hi.
I was calling about the Missouri Bluffs questions, and unfortunately, the questions and the comments I had to make are both towards Ray and Bill. So nobody was there. The guys aren't there that I really wanted to talk to.
Well, they're listening.
We'll pass it along.
We'll pass it on. Go ahead. What do you have to say?
Okay. Well, I really had a question for Ray about the 30 to 50% grade, because he said that for St. Charles, and I thought when I understood it, and I'm against it, and I totally disagree with that being done. But I think that's strictly for unincorporated St. Charles County. It's not for the cities of St. Peters and the city of St. Charles or the St. Charles or Wentzville. So I just wanted to clarify that. I thought it was strictly for unincorporated St. Charles County.
Okay.
And with Bill, his comment, I kind of agree with him. It might go this way. It's a done deal. It's over with. The environmentalists aren't going to get us anywhere. But my question is before now, when did the environmentalists really have a chance to speak? It was a backroom deal between Whitaker and the county and the University of Missouri, and it was all done before we had, as an environmentalist, any chance to say anything. So now we are saying something. The county people should look at what we're saying, and give us our chance. I mean, at least we're trying to do something and trying to stop the backroom deal.
I think they
Those were my
are,
comments.
Deborah, and it was my understanding, Alvin, correct me if I'm wrong, from what either Charlie or Ray, one of them interjected, that this has been an ongoing dispute and an ongoing conversation for quite a while.
Yeah, we actually talked about it a few months ago, but like Deborah was saying, we might have been talking about a deal that technically was in place
That was
already.
right. That was
now,
already signed.
Whether it gets done or not, we'll get to that point. And I know this because it's going on near us too. When you're talking about the grade and what it can be, that's the slope, that's where the project is, and the higher the degree, the faster the water is going to come flying down into your street.
Yeah.
Right. It's ultimately, so that's what may have been changed, like you said, in unincorporated St. Charles as opposed to like all St. Charles County.
Well, and one of the things that I still, have questions about in one of the earlier articles about it, one of the construction representatives, I'm not sure if it was from Whitaker Homes, but they were saying that, that they were going to do, it was going to be the least disruptive development. And if you can explain to me how you can build a development for that many houses on that type of a parcel without disrupting, I'm all ears. So, but thank you very much for the phone call, Deborah.
All right, we got some tweets. Liz Will, thanks, Ray, for leading the charge against development on the Bluffs.
At JDR 1949, it looks cool to have homes on a hillside is the worst argument ever. I agree.
He followed up with, too tedious to walk across the street is the dumbest excuse ever made by a prosecutor.
Now, if the prosecutor lived on a hill overlooking the Bluffs, then we'd have to definitely dump
And he
it
had
over.
to walk up a 50% grade instead of 30. Yeah, then I might be a little bit more on his side. Let's go to Jim, South City. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Yes, hi. Bob McCullough was handicapped, had one leg. Yet you didn't hear him not paying his traffic tickets. What goes this Wesley Bell, who inflicted heavy fines in North County when he was a judge on poor black people who get excessive fines. Yeah, but he's privileged above the law. And I have one question, one simple question. When did truth become the racist? Is MetroLink down because of black crime, or is it because of white crime being committed on the MetroLink?
Well, crime is crime no matter who
commits it.
And we said crime was a problem. So does that satisfy you, Jim?
Well, who's doing the crime? Let's not ignore the truth.
Wait a minute. If people don't ride the MetroLink because there is crime on it, what difference does it make what color the people are committing the crime?
There used to be
so if white people,
if somebody pulls a gun on me, I don't really care what they're.
Jim, if white people were committing the crime, what you're saying is if white people were committing the crime, people would still ride the MetroLink.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying you had a host.
Right.
You had a host on KMOX. You said there's a black problem among black youth, and they fired him. The truth will set you free until you've got a problem.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Let's go to St. Charles and visit with Ted. Hi, Ted. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hey, thanks, Wendy and Alvin. I think Ray is off base when he makes his comments about the page extension, and he talks about the MetroLink. It's crime that was the problem that caused St. Charles not to allow the extension or help pay for the extension out here. It was crime. It was only crime, and security on MetroLink is actually the worst of the problems. If you don't have security on there, I'm 72, going to be 73 in a few weeks, and I'm afraid to ride on the MetroLink. I'm afraid of the crime.
Okay,
so I'm going to
Ted,
have to drive.
One quick question for you. When St. Charles voted that they didn't want an extension, MetroLink was
in its infancy.
In its infancy. Now, if you were going to say we saw the future and we knew this would happen, I can't argue with that. But crime was, when St. Charles said no to it, crime was not a problem on the MetroLink.
Well, you're right. At the time, there were St. Louis City and County policemen on that MetroLink. There are not now.
Okay, I'm just saying that it wasn't a problem when St. Charles said no. So, but if you're
correct, it was the fear of crime.
Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. All right, we appreciate it, and I don't disagree with you. All right, let's go to Crystal in Swansea. Hi, Crystal.
Hi, Alvin, Wendy. How are you guys doing today?
Just
What
fine.
a pretty name.
Thank you so much. I just want to say that I think Wesley Bell should lead by example. You know, get it over with and pay the tickets. But as far as the MetroLink, I love it. I'm in Illinois, and whether my husband and I, we travel a lot, and it's so convenient to get on the metro. And, you know, rather than to park our car over there for a week at the airport and pay an enormous amount of money, it's so convenient. And I see so many people from Illinois. Baseball season, I mean, it's packed. All you see is red. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, Wendy. I think you said it best. If there's a crime being committed, I don't care if you're black, white, or purple. Crime is crime. So I didn't understand the last caller when he made that comment. I just really didn't. It got next to me because I didn't understand it. Because I ride the MetroLink, my husband and I do. And like I said, I like the convenience of it. And I don't think I don't think that Lyft or Uber could ever beat the price of what it costs to ride the MetroLink.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking my call.
Oh, thank you. You know, I've said this all the time. I could snap my fingers and have, Washington, D.C.'s metro system in St. Louis.
Oh, my gosh.
2 days later, all the cars would be packed. And all the fear and all that would go away because it would just be so convenient and so many people would be on it.
People would sell their cars.
Yes. If you didn't have to drive into the city or from Clayton to Wentzville or back, if you didn't have to drive, people would stop using their cars so much. And that's true. That's been proven any place they've really developed mass transit.
We thank you for the phone call,
Thank
Crystal.
You.
And let's go to Donna in Afton, first-time caller. Hi, Donna. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook.
Hi guys.
Your
How
turn.
you doing?
Just fine. How are you?
Great. I wanted to talk about the Bluffs. First of all, in Afton, we were going to have a bunch of houses built where the Tower T was, and enough of us, protested that, and it's not going to happen. It's never too late to take action. Secondly, we've seen developers destroy the natural beauty of Missouri everywhere, from going out Old Gravois to the Gravois Bluffs on Highway 70 and the floodplain. That's all history. It's time to draw a line in the sand and say enough is enough. Don't let a few greedy, selfish people destroy these bluffs because they want a home up there, and it's just not right. I mean, they must be saved for not just ourselves, but our children and our children's children. I enjoyed these areas when I was very little, and I wanted to be here for my kids, and I think they can skip building a few houses on these bluffs.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. It was built already, but when I moved back, I wondered about Gravois Bluffs and all the big box stores up there. And I said, so they decided this was the only place to build like a Target and a Best Buy. I really didn't get that one, but I wasn't here. So.
Yep. Well, and the other thing is that there has been so much development, and I think that the Katy Trail has really changed people's sensibilities. When you and I were growing up, exercise was something you did in your street or the driveway or the backyard or whatever, and now you see families that really have made the Katy Trail part of their lives and part of their children's lives. And so I just think we're much more aware and sensitive to any type of development like this than maybe we would have been 10 or 15 years ago. But thank you, Donna.
We agreed. Richard in Weldon Springs, how you doing tonight?
Doing fine, Alvin. How are you?
Just fine.
I'd like to talk about the development, the Bluffs development. Number one, I think it's a bad deal for the University of Missouri. There were 7 acres sold at the intersection of 94 and 64. They're building condos on for $8 million. Whittaker is getting 380 acres for $3.5 million. I think that's a bad deal all around. I want to know why that land was not, if they must sell it, why it was not put up for bid and let other developers bid on it.
I would tend to agree with you. In past weeks when we had this discussion, I think that was pointed out.
It was a gift.
Yeah, and I don't know if they didn't want to charge top dollar for it because it was gifted to them in the first place. I also don't know if for some reason they couldn't make a profit on it because you're a land grant university. So maybe that's basically what it's a praise that, even though you could definitely get a lot more for it. There's some nuance there,
Something
but
doesn't
Richard,
make sense,
I
yeah.
agree with you on that one.
Absolutely. Back to the Twitterverse we go. We have 3 tweets.
Annie Marie Berry, there's no excuse for Wesley Bell not even parking in his allotted space in the parking garage. It's his choice to illegally park. He needs to pay his tickets.
Thank you, at Annie. At Sister Sarah 23, MetroLink is nice, so you don't have to pay to park and then have to deal with parking tickets. It needs updating and improvements. I'm glad to see it getting money for updating. Thank you, at Sister Sarah.
I guess Wesley can't take the MetroLink from the garage.
No.
JDR 149, back with us again. Lacey echoed Pelosi's sentiment that the squad is only 4 votes. The old guard Dems are scared. The squad are the future of the party, and that number is only going to grow. Hashtag Donnybrook STL. I'm sorry, that was at Holy Star. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that.
And yes, he's right. Hashtag Donnybrook STL. We still have plenty of time left for your tweets. So let's go to Dave in Defiance. Hi, Dave. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Good evening. Enjoying the program tonight, and I'd like to make a comment about the Bluffs.
Go right ahead.
And that is, I got a friend that lives in Washington, Missouri, that overlooks the Missouri River on the Bluffs. And the issue that a lot of people in Washington have is they let the trees grow so tall you can't see the river. So these people that are going to build on the Bluffs in St. Charles County, if they decide you can't cut down the trees, you may not see what you want to put your house on to see, but you might see trees.
That's interesting.
That is interesting.
I mean, I can see that happening where they say, like, listen, you can't cut all the trees down, so sooner or later the year comes where you can no longer see. You know, I never thought about that. You know what else, Dave? Ever since I've been a kid, I thought the town name Defiance was like a cool place.
I did too.
I always thought like that.
That's where all the teenagers should live, right?
I'd like to be from Defiance.
It's just like the movie.
Well, thank you, Dave from Defiance.
Thank
you
you
keep
so-
being defiant out there.
Yeah.
Thank
you so much.
Okay.
Let's go to Jackie in St. Charles.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Alvin and Miss Wendy. How are you?
Fine.
Thank you.
Good, good. I'm calling because I want to talk about the MetroLink. I do think that the MetroLink, it's an interesting ride, but it is very scary.
Mm-hmm.
Just the platform itself, and when you get on, I mean, I think they need metal detectors. I think they need great lighting. I think they need even a building that you can stand in because it's, like I said, but it's a nice ride. I mean, you know, it goes fast, it takes you where you're going, and it's cheap. So I did enjoy it, but it does have its scary points because, you know, you just don't know who you're next to, and I don't care who I'm next to. It's just I want to be safe.
I hear you. And that's when we talk about, you know, having to purchase a card, which then, you know, opens the gate for you where you pay. That's the point about, like, the metro system in the D.C. area. Even if you're not in a completely, like, sheltered building, you have to access the platform. And every single one of them, you either have to go up like an escalator or walk down steps. And so just once you even have done that, you're walking into an area that's secure. And, you know, unfortunately, ours was not constructed that way. But we could start by making people pay to get on the MetroLink.
Amen. Amen, amen. Jackie, we thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go to Jerry in Benton Park. Hi, Jerry. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, Alvin. Actually, it's Gary. I'm only about Mr. Bell's situation. There's a parking app that you can renew parking on. That's a simple solution. Have him simply get the app and renew his parking.
All right. Yeah, I know. I've heard of those. They have those in Chicago.
Yeah.
And they do help you. I don't have it, but I know people up that way, and they swear by it.
Maybe your daughter?
Not yet, because he's not having a car in Chicago. That's not happening.
No. I remember what parking was like 20 years ago. I cannot even imagine the sticker shock parking in downtown Chicago. Thank you very much, Gary.
And now we're going to Jerry in Jefferson County. Hi, Jerry.
Hey, how you guys doing this evening?
Just fine.
Thank you.
Hey, I would like to talk to you guys a little bit about this MetroLink. I don't know how much money they have put in this from day one till now. And neither one of you guys are old enough to remember. But I can remember in the 60s, early 60s, they had streetcars that ran all over the city of St. Louis.
Yeah.
They even ran out to your city.
Wait a minute.
Kirkwood.
We remember.
I can take you to where it turned around. That's still called the loop area of Kirkwood. And when they fixed the streets, like when they repaved them, the tracks are still there.
I worked for the water department, and I always hated it because on certain streets, when we had to dig it up, we knew we had to cut the ties and the rails out of the way.
Wow.
But how many millions of dollars did it cost them to just pave over all of those old tracks and do away with all of that transportation that they had?
That's a good question, because you know how, not just around here, but you know how America is.
Oh, yeah.
The idea was trolley cars, street cars, that's out.
That's yesterday.
That's yesterday's news. Let's just make them inaccessible and not even think about what the future may hold.
And then 20, 30 years later in the future, you're thinking, whoops.
Whoops, right.
Yeah.
And then Bill pointed it out, I will never understand this, why they did not run MetroLink down 40 when 40 was closed for all that time. I will never, ever understand. It was a freebie. And as far as what it's cost so far, not a lot compared to a lot of other systems.
That's for sure.
Right. We still have a very, very small and affordable, metro system.
And the aforementioned Washington, D.C., that is something out of a Stanley Kubrick movie. That is, when I think of that price tag, it makes your eyes roll back in your head. So it is still affordable, and hopefully will become more secure.
Hopefully.
Thank you for the phone call. Let's go to Sarah in St. Louis. Hi, Sarah. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn.
Hi. I just wanted to comment on Wesley Bell's parking ticket situation. Obviously, I think he should pay them. I just can't figure out why he thinks his decision not to pay them is going to sit well with the voters of St. Louis County and how they will view him going forward because of this. And also, if he's not using his parking space in the garage that's been allotted to him, does that mean somebody else could be using that spot and now they're having to make other accommodations? I don't know, but I wish he would pay his tickets.
Sarah,
Thank you.
Before we came on, I got a little update from Ray. And Ray had talked to somebody and was saying, like, part of the reason that he wants to take it to court is there's some miscommunication, or his understanding was he could park wherever he parked and not be ticketed. Not just him, but I guess some certain office holders. So he wanted to get that straight. And the one parking place in a garage that I would not park in would be the one that said it was the prosecuting attorney's parking space. I might
if you had to walk 15 miles.
Right. I might park in anybody else's, but that's the one I would leave alone. Thanks, Sarah. Let's go to Dan. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to make a comment about the MetroLink. I think somebody had said something about when they get on the Metro, they see the Cardinals games. There's an ocean of red on the MetroLink. There's no problems on the MetroLink, and I kind of think maybe if we started putting tax money into those areas that are around the MetroLink stations, that are on the doorstep of the MetroLink stations, like giving businesses tax incentives for putting a grocery store, or coming up here might be a medical marijuana facility. I think that would be a hot ticket for people to take the Metro, and I think crime would end when you get more and more people.
Yeah, it would
Crime seems to stop.
Yeah, it goes down, certainly. That's the, that would be a major solution to it. And guess what? Not to go back to the whole Washington, D.C. thing again. I don't know if they're still doing it, but that's how they developed around their metro stations. If you were going to do a business or build homes, things like that, there were really nice tax credits. And a lot of stuff that you see around the metro stops in the D.C. area was not there when they started. Some were, but a lot of places where the metro stop is, I can tell you where I lived in Vienna, Virginia, there was originally not a lot. It now goes farther west than it did, but if you go back now, it is so developed around.
Now it's a hot spot.
It's a hot spot.
Yeah.
So yes, it does work out that way. Good call.
Thank you, Dan. Let's go to Tom in South County. Hi, Tom. Welcome. You're on Donnybrook. Your turn. Got to be quick.
Hi. Okay.
I'm calling about the MetroLink. There was almost a promise that it would come down 55 to Butler Hill, and that's where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And I would gladly take it, and it just didn't happen.
That's
not
the line.
Politics.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's the line that they're trying to do. The next one will be north-south. I don't know if it'll get all the way down there, but that's the promise, you know.
And I don't know if you and I will be here with our grandchildren helping us on and off the MetroLink train, because we've been talking about the extensions for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, real quick, I think we got like about 10 seconds, okay? You there, Bill?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, where
All right.
do you think you have a better of a crime in St. Louis, riding MetroLink or driving? Every day in the Post-Dispatch, somebody's getting shot at. They're victims of drive-by shootings, carjackings.
All right, I hear you, Bill. And I don't mean to cut you off, but we got to go, okay? Thanks so much. Thank all you guys for watching. We'll be back next week with Donnybrook. And Donnybrook, your turn.
Bye-bye.